be defending my thought process for why I will be voting for Guillotine in this upcoming Community Champion Update Poll 2021. As always, there's a link to the forum in the description below, and if your name is Capitan Manny Music, are you voting for Joe Fixit or Ant-Man? Just a quick shout out there. That said, the post itself, quick summary, there are 6 champions up for vote: Thor, Jane Foster, Ms. Marvel, Kamala Khan, Joe Fixit, Ant-Man, Guillotine, and Agent Venom. After an initial round of votes, 2 will be selected as finalists, at which point the players will earn voting ballots in a special arena, up to 6, and then we'll vote for our champions that we want to see buffed accordingly, and then that buff will hopefully, by Kabam's timeline, drop in October or November. Kabam does state that the other champions do have scheduled plans for being buffed. It's just that they'll be coming at a later time. The other thing is, from what we've seen from previous community polls, the buffs on the community poll champ is actually usually really solid, or it has been to this point. So hopefully that does mean we get a little bit of a higher tune-up or higher overall on those champions for who wins. So personally, I feel like this is not just voting on who's getting buffed, but also who might be getting a stronger buff than normally intended. So that said, I'll be splitting the 6 champions into 3 major categories. The first is the 2 champions I would like to see in the finals. The second is the 2 champions I would be okay with seeing in the finals. And the third category is, please don't vote for these 2 champions, because I'm basing all of my impressions on their core kit right now, things that I'm hoping Kabam will keep or maintain, and then basing it on the potential for what an overhaul would do to that core kit. So as you know by the title of this video, my main vote is going to Guillotine. And the reason for that is that she has access to lifesteal, she has access to heal reversal, and she has access to bleeds. Sorry, my brain just froze for a second. But because she has access to these 3 major utilities, I would like to see that in her overhaul. Now, I know regeneration is something we see in Mystic, but it's always nice to get more regeneration effects, and we see that in some of the strongest champions like Morningstar or Guillotine 2099 or Black Widow Clairvoyant. Any form of sustain is really, really good for a champion moving into endgame content. And Guillotine's is a lifesteal based one on hit. She also, as a champion, has really good reach. That sword is huge, and who doesn't like a big sword in their hands? You know what I'm saying? But that said, moving forward, she also has access to Bleed, which is relatively unique in the Mystic class. Sim Supreme does have access to Bleed and is very potent as a result. And then she also has access to Heal Reversal, which, while we have Heal Reversal in the game, there's not a huge amount of accessibility options there. And if they've made a way for Guillotine's Heal Reversal to be more accessible than like a off-time SP2, where it's not used super frequently, and had like a little more longevity to the value, that would be really nice as well. I think for these reasons, I really promote Guillotine. I think that those 3 utilities are relatively unique, especially relatively unique and valuable in the Mystic class, and I would like to see them going forward. My second champion that I would be happy to see in the top 2 is Thor Jane Foster, riding along with my big sword metaphor there. Who doesn't like to have a really powerful hammer in their hand, if you know what I'm saying? Innuendos aside, Thor Jane Foster actually has access to really solid gameplay and actually has been used to do things like Abyss of Legends by some very clever creators. She also has access to shock resistance. She has access to guaranteed critical hits versus stunned opponents. She has access to stagger. She has access to shock. So she hits these really clutch utilities. I would like to see in an overhaul higher shock resistance, but honestly, even at where she's at now, she synergizes with Odin, so maybe even just like a synergy with Odin to give it to her in any way, shape, or form. But honestly, full 100% shock resistance would be really nice to see. The staggers as is are relatively pretty good, so those are fine, but those guaranteed hits, guaranteed critical hits on stun could be super potent and could make her into this damage powerhouse if tuned up in the right way. And the potency for shock and the access to having this new champion really come into value, this overhaul champion, not new, I apologize, for things like Thunderstruck, would be really nice to have. I think Thunderstruck is a node that we have options for, but don't always feel like we have the greatest of options for, and this would provide a Mystic stagger champion and push her into a damage threshold potentially where that's really valuable. So those are my top two would like to see. For the ones that I'm in the middle about and would be pretty okay with seeing, the first is Ms. Marvel. Now, the reason Ms. Marvel is in there is because she does have that poison immunity, as she also has access to Fury. So this does mean that she becomes a 6.2.2 Mr. Sinister option. I like seeing any option for that. She already is. It's just, it's painful. Sweetia has done it. I'm not trying to pretend like she's not already an option, but it would be nice to see that, you know, work a little bit better. She does have some clever creative tips or abilities in her passive as well. The reason she's just like in the middle is I don't feel like she's providing something crazy unique to the game, and her core kit without like a major overhaul and added utilities just would feel lackluster to me as a result of so many other champions already providing this utility of poison immunity as well as Fury, which the major utility there is Caustic Temper. I just feel like we already have so many very powerful, very strong options for that. Adding another one to the mix doesn't make the biggest of differences unless they decide to go more down the route of the size impact of Kamala Khan and opt for a different approach to utility, which I am hopeful for, and that's why she does land in the middle. The next one is Joe Fixit. Now, Joe Fixit is interesting because right now, one of the difficulties in him is in the RNG of his abilities, as well as the fact that they're just not quite potent enough. But he does have access to a really interesting utility set, and with champions like Black Widow Clairvoyant or Psycho Man, or champions essentially where they have a lot more ability to choose their abilities, I'm hoping that an overhaul of Joe Fixit would provide him with that selectivity. If he could fix the deck, have a signature ability that was a pre-fight ability that allowed him to select the utility you wanted, or double down on a specific utility, or increase the percentage chance of getting a specific utility, and then they upped his damage and overall rating, I think there could be a lot of potential for Joe Fixit entering the game with some really, really powerful utility and sustain, which I think would be good, at least for the general populace of the game. So finally, I have the two that I'm just like, please don't vote for these champions. And the first one is Ant-Man, and that is because he is glancing. It is just so hard for me to look at Ant-Man and think of any way they overhaul this champion without having a high focus on defense. Now, they could do what they did with Hulkbuster, where they put a heavy emphasis on defense, but they still make him a heavy-hitting attacker. I'm not trying to pretend like he doesn't have the accessibility for that with, like, the fatigue and the poisons. He does have that in his core kit, but the biggest thing Ant-Man is known for is his glancing, and glancing is not really an attacker-centric ability. It's nice, it can save you from time to time, but most times it's more of a frustration, so I don't want to see Ant-Man get any kind of overhaul in that regard. And so I just don't draw a lot of hype from this. Even though there is the potential for them to take it down a different route, I just don't enjoy that or see it as a good potential. The next one is Agent Venom, and now Agent Venom is this skill champion with access to bleed and shrug and damage. We already have that. We already have this in spades. So I just don't feel like Agent Venom's core kit provides any kind of unique utility. We just see this present in so many ways, shapes, and forms, and while I would love to see Agent Venom get a buff in general, he does hit that bottom 6 for me. So that said, as always, let me know what you think. Let me know who you'll be voting for, and well, I hope Guillotine makes the final 2. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.